In today's video, we're going to be talking about one of the most popular questions going into Stranger Things 5. And that question is, how is the gang going to defeat Vecna? So I'm going to go through each and every possibility and give you my breakdown on why I think that's a possibility. And we're also obviously going to discuss the most likely scenarios. Before we get into this YouTube video, make sure to drop like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and join my Discord down below where we talk TV shows pretty much every single day. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. The first way that the gang could finally defeat Vecna is obviously 11 using all of her powers. And I put some more thought into this, and I think it needs to be more than 11 just using her powers because she's already done that against Vecna and she's failed. So I think in this scenario, if 11 were to use her powers, it would go down one of two ways. Number one, she would have a full power surge to where she would use all of her powers to take down Vecna and die in the process, simply because her body just couldn't take using that much power. And number two also involves her dying, but this time she would use all of her powers to close the Upside Down and trap her and Vecna inside the Upside Down so everyone else in the world is safe. And each option pretty much sucks because 11 dies in both ways. But that is option number one. 11 just using all of her powers to the point to where she basically just dies, but Vecna is defeated once and for all. Now, this next option is something that I've never thought about, but it would be pretty unique. Imagine the gang weaponizing music. What if there's a certain song that Henry Creel heard as a child that traumatized him, and what if they use that to make Vecna weaker? Think about it. They found a song that Max liked and it helped her gain more strength. So if they find a song that Vecna doesn't like or that creeps him out or something, maybe it could make him weaker. This is not that likely, but I thought I'd throw it in there because I found it pretty interesting. So number two is weaponizing music. The third possible option is that Max and Will use their connection to Vecna to communicate to 11 and the gang how to kill him and where his weak spots are. Now, the way I'm going to explain this one is that basically Max is trapped in Vecna's mind, at least we think. So if she's conscious in Vecna's mind, maybe she's going to be in Vecna's mind layer and going to be able to see what Vecna sees. We don't know how it's going to work, but I'm just trying to imagine if Max is actually trapped in Vecna's mind or has some sort of link to Vecna, maybe she can use that link to then communicate after she gets out of the coma what Vecna doesn't like and where they can attack him. And obviously with Will, he's still connected with Vecna in the Mind Flayer, so he can do a similar thing by using his connection, somehow weaponizing it and finding Vecna in the Mind Flayer's weaknesses. Or maybe in this scenario, Will finds out he has powers and then he uses those against Vecna. I don't know how that would happen. Maybe after he gets unlinked with the Mind Flayer and Vecna, or something traumatic happens, or he just figures it out. Who knows? But that's also a possibility. So number three is Max and Will use their connection to Vecna to their advantage. Number four is closing the gate permanently. Now, I already said that 11 could close the gate using her powers, but the gang could also just close the gate together, and that could be like the final scene. All of them getting together, closing the gate to the Upside Down, finally dismembering that connection with the real world, and it's gone forever. But they do it as a group instead of 11 doing it and dying. So that's option number four. Option number five is using nuclear power to just bomb/put on fire the hive mind. We saw what fire did to the hive mind back in season 2 when they lit it on fire and then Will went crazy and all this other stuff. So what if they remember that and then think, oh, we could light this on fire, or we could just use nuclear power and destroy everything? I don't think that's likely because I think that'd be pretty obvious and boring, but that's option number five. Option number six is that Vecna turns against the Mind Flayer, and the Mind Flayer ends up being the biggest, baddest villain, and Vecna sacrifices his life for the gang, for 11, and defeats the Mind Flayer because of that. Not only is this unlikely because Vecna is a current villain, but it's also unlikely because there's a good chance that Vecna controls the Mind Flayer doesn't control Vecna. But in the off chance that the Mind Flayer does control Vecna, I could see this as a possibility. Number seven is a theory that I talked about in my second most recent video, and that is Callie returning, using her powers, and helping 11 defeat Vecna when 11's against the ropes. I could definitely see a scenario where the gang's used all of their tricks in their sleeve. They've done all the battle plans that they decided to do. 11 used all of her powers. She's so weak, she's on the edge of almost dying, and then in comes Callie/8, and she comes in, uses her powers, makes Vecna see an illusion, he freaks out, and then they finally, maybe 11 uses the last of her powers, pushes him into the Upside Down, and then they close the gate, and then it's done. Now, if Callie is going to return, I do think that's a huge possibility, but obviously we don't know if 8 is actually confirmed to return or not. Number 8 is actually one of my more favorite options of how the gang could defeat Vecna in the final season. We know that Dr. Owens is going to be in Stranger Things 5, and if he did get away from the military and he's helping the gang, what's to say that he doesn't know of a secret chemical weapon or some sort of weapon that they built back in the 70s or 80s that no one knows about besides the people who worked at the Hawkins lab? Like, what if Dr. Owens knows about a weapon that they've never used, that they saved for certain scenarios, and he brings it in season 5? We know there's always been this vibe that Dr. Owens knows something we don't because he worked with Dr. Brenner. So what if they use that storyline to have him bring us to an insane weapon, and then they use that along with 11, along with Callie, along with everything else, along with the gang coming up with a plan on how to use the weapon, and that's the final plan. Personally, I find that option very intriguing on multiple levels because it gives Dr. Owens a bigger role, but it also taps into that storyline that he knows more than everybody else. I don't know what number we're on now, but the last option is just a final battle between every single character that returned, Vecna's undead army, and they just battle out, hash it out, and the gang and 11 and all of them just collectively defeat Vecna, and that's the end of the story. I would say that's probably most likely, because that also could include Callie returning and helping 11, all that stuff, because I don't think 11's going to die, but I do think that another possibility that is like pretty likely is that if 11's going to die, she sacrifices her life and closes the gate from the inside. I think that's a pretty good option. Something that's not as likely is Dr. Owens finding that weapon. I just threw that in there because I thought it was really cool. But let me know what you guys think is the most likely option out of these scenarios. I think Max and Will also teaming together, using their links to Vecna, using that to their advantage, is probably up there on some of the most likely scenarios going into season 5. Like I said, let me know your comments and your theories down below of what you think is most likely to happen. And if you guys want more videos like this, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and most importantly, have a great rest of your day. I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.